Hi, my name is Jon Zurawski, and I'm a proud graduate of the Georgetown School of Medicine class of 2012. I'm a clinical neurologist at the Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston. I'm an assistant professor of neurology at Harvard Medical School, and I currently maintain a large clinical practice with specialty expertise in multiple sclerosis and neuroimmunology. I'm also the co-director of the Laboratory for Neuroimaging Research, which uses high-resolution MRI techniques to better understand brain disease, particularly in MS. So a large part of how I got here is a result of my Georgetown training. I went to Cornell for undergrad and I studied neurobiology. I think my Georgetown classmates would surely say they knew I was going to be a neurologist from the start. I was very excited about the brain and about neurology. And I remember back to my first days at Georgetown. I think they still do this where right after you get your white coat, you get to put it on and go in your first week of training and rotate in a clinic. And for me, I was paired up with a clinical neurologist at Georgetown, Dr. Carlo Tornatore, who's now the chief of neurology there. I just looked him up. He had 923 five-star reviews. And I remember shadowing with him then, and it was only supposed to be sort of a 1-month exposure introductory class. But I remember thinking to myself, this is a doctor who really understands neurology. His patients love him. He would hug his patients at the end of the encounter and just really embodied what I think Georgetown training does. And he himself being a graduate some years ago. So I always remember thinking to myself, this is the kind of doctor I'd like to be like. And going forward, I really kind of carried on in a path to become an MS specialist. I went to Beth Israel Deaconess Neurology Residency. I was a chief resident there. I spent a lot of time in the MS clinic. And then by the time I got to fellowship, I had seen hundreds more MS patients than a typical fellow would have seen by virtue of my training at Georgetown and in residency. So I took on some specialty training in neuroimaging, and my time here since coming on faculty in 2018, I've been developing a research program here, which is looking for novel ways to treat MS, combining neuroimaging with blood and spinal fluid biomarkers. How I think Georgetown education influences my care now, I think cura personalis, care for the whole person. For me as a neurologist, sometimes neurology gets a bad rap about treating patients that have incurable illnesses. MS itself does not have a cure. Patients are diagnosed in their 20s, and the disease can be irreversible and it can be unpredictable. So part of my job is to offer hope and to offer resilience to patients who are diagnosed with an irreversible neurologic condition early on. What I do with my research is apply neuroimaging techniques to new trials. We're looking for new cures and new therapies, and we're very excited to have new approaches for progressive MS, which is a condition that does not have great treatments right now, and working toward coming up with answers for patients who currently don't have treatments. So a lot of my practice is spent giving that sense of hope and resilience to patients, and remembering that when the patient's in front of you, there's more than just the disease label. There's more than just the treatment that you give to manage the illness, but spending more time with patients, talking about those kinds of anxieties of the unknown of a neurologic problem, being a source of emotional support, and ultimately growing to become friends with patients and really following them over a long term. For me, that's a really rewarding thing. So I do think back to those early days in Georgetown with the white coat in the first week. In some ways, it has come full circle, and I feel really proud of that. So I'm happy to be a resounding source of optimism for Georgetown as well. I think it's a great place to train and is a very formative experience for me and a reason why I'm the doctor I am today.